If you are over the age of 60, and you have ever experienced that sudden, terrifying drop in your stomach when you are mid-sentence and a completely familiar word entirely evaporates from your mind, you understand the silent, suffocating fear of cognitive decline. You understand the absolute highest stakes imaginable, which is the agonizing prospect of slowly losing your autonomy, forgetting the faces of your grandchildren, and becoming a prisoner in a mind that no longer recognizes its own reflection. You have been conditioned to believe that this slow fading of your intellect is simply the inevitable cost of growing older, or perhaps the tragic result of a genetic lottery that you have unfortunately lost. But you must listen to me right now, because the prevailing medical narrative about age-related memory loss is missing one of the most astonishing biological discoveries of the 21st century. The secret to halting your cognitive decline, restoring your razor-sharp memory, and physically reversing the age of your brain does not originate inside your skull. The ultimate biological fountain of youth, the master control center for your memory, is actually hiding deep inside your skeleton. For decades, you have been subjected to a deeply flawed, hyper-specialized medical system that treats the human body as a collection of completely isolated parts. If you have a problem with your memory, you are sent to a neurologist who only looks at your brain. If you have aching joints or thinning bones, you are sent to an orthopedic specialist who only looks at your skeleton. Because of this massive institutional blind spot, millions of aging adults are carrying an enormous burden of guilt, believing that their memory slips are their own fault for not eating enough blueberries or doing enough crossword puzzles. You have been told that your skeleton is nothing more than inert, dead scaffolding, the biological equivalent of calcium chalk designed merely to hold your muscles upright and keep you from collapsing into a puddle on the floor. You have been warned about osteoporosis, but only in the context of avoiding a broken hip. The medical establishment entirely missed the fact that your bones are actively whispering commands to your brain every single second of the day. To profoundly change the trajectory of your cognitive health, you must completely shatter the illusion that your bones are dry, dead structural beams. We must journey inside the microscopic architecture of your skeleton, where a massive, bustling, highly intelligent cellular factory is operating around the clock. Your skeleton is not just scaffolding, it is actually the largest endocrine organ in your entire body. An endocrine organ is a gland that produces and releases chemical messengers, called hormones, directly into your bloodstream to control the function of other distant organs. Just as your thyroid gland controls your metabolism and your pancreas controls your blood sugar, your living skeleton produces powerful hormones that dictate the biological age of your entire nervous system. The revelation of this skeletal superpower occurred inside the laboratories of Columbia University, under the direction of a pioneering geneticist named Dr. Gerard Carcenti. Dr. Carcenti and his team were not looking for a cure for dementia. They were simply studying bone metabolism in mice. They genetically engineered a group of mice to lack a specific, obscure hormone that is produced exclusively inside the bone marrow. This hormone is called osteocalcin. When the researchers observed these mice that could not produce osteocalcin, they expected to see issues with their bones. But what they witnessed instead completely shattered the foundational dogmas of modern biology. The mice without osteocalcin did not just have bone issues, they suffered a catastrophic systemic collapse of youth. They became rapidly obese. Their blood sugar skyrocketed into a state of severe diabetes, and most shockingly, their brains effectively stopped working. These mice became profoundly cognitively impaired. They could no longer navigate simple mazes they had previously memorized. They lost all spatial awareness. They exhibited the exact behavioral equivalent of advanced, age-related dementia. And when the researchers examined the brains of these mice under a microscope, they found that the hippocampus, the tiny, seahorse-shaped structure deep in the brain responsible for printing new memories, had physically shriveled and deteriorated. But the miracle occurred in the second phase of the experiment. The researchers took these old, confused, cognitively impaired mice and began injecting them with the osteocalcin hormone that their bones were failing to produce. The results were nothing short of biological alchemy. The hormone traveled through the bloodstream, breached the highly secure blood-brain barrier, and flooded into the shriveled hippocampus. Within days, the mice began to change. Their spatial memory was completely restored. They navigated the mazes flawlessly. They exhibited the curiosity, the sharp reflexes, and the cognitive agility of mice a fraction of their age. The osteocalcin had not just slowed the cognitive decline, it had physically reversed it, sparking the birth of fresh new neurons in the memory center of the brain. The researchers had discovered that osteocalcin, an obscure protein produced exclusively by the skeleton, was the master key that unlocked cognitive youth. This brings us to a critical, deeply empowering realization. The heavy, suffocating brain fog you are experiencing right now, the forgotten names, and the lost train of thought, might not be the result of incurable brain disease. It is highly likely that your brain is simply starving to death because your skeleton has stopped feeding it the osteocalcin it desperately needs to survive. And the reason your skeleton has shut down production is not your fault. It is the tragic consequence of the modern, industrialized environment we have been forced to live in. To understand why your bones control your memory, we must look backward through hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. We must ask a fundamental biological question. Why would nature design the skeleton to be the remote control for the brain? The answer lies in the harsh reality of ancestral survival. Imagine an ancient hunter-gatherer living a nomadic life. When food became scarce, this human faced the threat of starvation. To survive, they had to walk for miles, perhaps days, tracking prey or foraging for deep-rooted tubers. This relentless physical journey placed immense mechanical stress on their bones. Evolution recognized that if an aging human is physically exhausted, starving, and wandering far from home, that is the exact moment they absolutely cannot afford to have a memory lapse. If they forget the location of the water source, or if they forget the intricate route back to their tribe, they die. Therefore, the human body developed a brilliant, fail-safe survival mechanism. When the bones are subjected to physical stress from walking, running, or lifting, the bone cells release a massive surge of osteocalcin into the blood. This osteocalcin rushes to the brain, hyperstimulating the hippocampus, flooding it with vital neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, and putting the brain into a state of maximum, razor-sharp alertness. In the evolutionary blueprint of the human body, physical stress on the skeleton is the exact signal that tells the brain to wake up and remember everything, because survival depends on it. But look at the world we inhabit today. We have engineered physical struggle entirely out of our existence. We wake up in soft beds. We wear heavily cushioned shoes that absorb all impact. We sit in ergonomically designed chairs for hours. We drive to the grocery store, and we return to sit on soft couches. As we age, we are actively encouraged to take it easy, to rest, and to avoid putting any strain on our bodies. This well-intentioned advice is a biological death sentence for your memory. When you remove mechanical stress from your skeleton, a condition known as skeletal unloading, your bones interpret this as a signal that the crisis of survival is over. If there is no impact, there is no need for high-level cognitive function. The microscopic factories inside your bones, called osteoblasts, immediately shut down the production of osteocalcin. As your bone density slowly drops, a completely silent condition known as osteopenia, which eventually progresses into osteoporosis. Your circulating levels of osteocalcin plummet right alongside it. Your brain, deprived of its most powerful anti-aging hormone, begins to physically shrink. The memory centers wither not from disease, but from a complete lack of skeletal stimulation. Your brain is starving because your bones have gone to sleep. But this knowledge is your ultimate salvation. Because the production of osteocalcin is highly responsive, you possess the profound, immediate ability to turn the factories back on. You can force your skeleton to flood your brain with this memory-saving hormone, regardless of whether you are 65 or 85 years old. To achieve this, we must leverage a magnificent law of physics that exists inside human bone, known as the piezoelectric effect. Bone is essentially a crystalline structure, much like the quartz inside a fine wristwatch. When you apply physical pressure to a quartz crystal, it physically deforms just a microscopic fraction, and that tiny deformation generates an electrical spark. This is the piezoelectric effect. Your bones work exactly the same way. When you place a mechanical load on your skeleton, when your bones slightly bend under the force of gravity or muscle tension, they generate a literal electrical current. This electrical current shoots through the bone tissue, waking up the dormant osteoblast cells. It commands them to build new dense bone tissue to handle the load, and critically, it commands them to immediately manufacture and release massive quantities of osteocalcin into your bloodstream. Now, I understand that the idea of placing heavy physical stress on your skeleton might sound completely terrifying, especially if you are managing the severe daily realities of osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, or a history of joint replacements. The fitness industry has propagated a deeply harmful myth that to build bone density, you must engage in high-impact, joint-destroying activities like heavy barbell squats or agonizing plyometric jumping. I am going to absolutely absolve you of that requirement right now. Your bones do not require high-velocity impact to generate the electrical spark. They only require high-tension mechanical loading. We can activate the osteocalcin factory using incredibly safe, completely low-impact modifications that protect your delicate cartilage while sending a massive wake-up call to your skeleton. The first and most accessible protocol for activating skeletal memory fuel is a process called isometric tension. Isometrics involve contracting your muscles as forcefully as possible without actually moving the joint. Because your muscles are securely anchored directly to your bones via massive tendons, when you contract a muscle deeply, it physically pulls and tugs on the bone itself. This internal tug-of-war bends the bone on a microscopic level, creating a massive piezoelectrical charge, all while your knee, hip, or shoulder joint remains completely still and protected. You can perform this right now in the safety of your own living room. Stand with your back flat against a sturdy wall, and slowly lower your hips just a few inches until you feel a deep burning engagement in your thigh muscles. Hold this position, completely static, for 30 seconds. Do not move. Breathe deeply. You will feel your muscles trembling. That trembling is the physical sensation of immense mechanical force being transferred directly into the femur, the largest bone in your body. That 30-second static hold is generating a massive electrical signal inside your marrow, waking up the osteoblasts and initiating a flood of osteocalcin that will reach your hippocampus within minutes. You can apply this same isometric principle to your upper body by pressing your palms together in front of your chest, as hard as you possibly can, or by pressing your hands outwardly against a door frame. By simply demanding maximum tension without movement, you are extracting the vital brain hormone from your bones without ever risking joint pain. If you are able to handle mild movement, but still require severe joint protection, we must turn to the miraculous environment of aquatic resistance. When you submerge your body in a swimming pool, the water acts as a universal multi-directional force field. Water is roughly 800 times denser than air. Therefore, every single movement you make in a pool, walking, pushing your arms forward, or lifting your legs, requires you to overcome massive resistance. This constant, heavy resistance forces your muscles to constantly tug on your skeleton, triggering the release of osteocalcin. But simultaneously, the buoyancy of the water completely unloads the sharp, downward gravitational pressure on your spine and knees. Aquatic therapy is the holy grail for senior cognitive health. It provides the heavy mechanical load required to feed the brain, combined with a zero-gravity environment that entirely forgives aged cartilage. We can also stimulate the lower body skeleton through a simple daily micro-habit, known as strategic heel striking. You do not need to run a marathon to generate impact. You simply need to remind your heel bone that gravity exists. While safely holding onto a kitchen counter for balance, rise up slightly onto the balls of your feet, and then drop your heels down onto the floor with a firm, deliberate stomp. You are not trying to shatter the tile. You are simply creating a blunt vibration that travels from the heel, up through the shin, and into the thigh bone. Performing 20 of these firm heel drops in the morning, and 20 in the evening, sends a daily rhythmic electrical pulse through your lower skeleton, signaling to your body that you are upright. You are moving, and your brain requires its daily dosage of osteocalcin to survive the journey. However, mechanical loading is only the physical trigger. Your skeleton cannot manufacture this miraculous brain-saving hormone out of thin air. The osteoblast cells inside your bones are like construction workers. The isometric exercises and the heel drops are the foreman yelling at the workers to build the factory and release the product. But if the workers do not have the proper raw materials delivered to the job site, they will simply stand around and do nothing. To ensure your bones can actually produce osteocalcin, we must absolutely correct a devastating systemic nutritional deficiency that is suffocating the skeletal health of almost every single adult over the age of 50. For the last 40 years, the medical establishment has pushed a singular, deeply flawed nutritional directive for bone health: consume massive amounts of calcium. You were told to drink 3 glasses of milk a day, and when that wasn't enough, doctors prescribed massive horse pill calcium supplements. Millions of seniors have dutifully swallowed thousands of milligrams of synthetic calcium carbonate every morning, believing they were building an indestructible skeleton to protect their memory. But what your doctor failed to tell you is that calcium is incredibly stupid. Once you swallow a calcium supplement, the mineral enters your bloodstream, but it has absolutely no idea where to go. Without a very specific biological traffic cop to direct it, that heavy calcium floating in your blood does not naturally gravitate toward your bones. Instead, it takes the path of least resistance. It begins to settle into the soft tissues of your body. It calcifies your delicate arteries, drastically increasing your risk of a massive heart attack. It crystallizes in your kidneys, forming agonizing kidney stones, and it deposits directly into your aging joints, causing severe bone-on-bone arthritic pain. You have effectively turned your cardiovascular system to stone, while your bones remain utterly hollow and starved, completely incapable of producing the osteocalcin your brain is begging for. To rescue your skeleton and reignite your memory, you do not need more calcium. You need the biological traffic cop that commands the calcium out of your arteries and actively forces it deep into the matrix of your bones. This traffic cop is a profoundly vital, yet entirely ignored, fat-soluble nutrient known as vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is the master orchestrator of calcium placement in the human body. When you consume vitamin K2, it physically activates specific proteins, including osteocalcin itself. In its inactive state, the osteocalcin released by your bone cells cannot hold on to calcium. It requires vitamin K2 to chemically alter its structure, allowing it to grab the rogue calcium out of your bloodstream and literally cement it into the microscopic scaffolding of your skeleton. This process simultaneously clears the dangerous blockages in your heart, remineralizes your hollow bones, and most importantly, it unlocks the osteocalcin molecule so that it can travel directly to your brain and stimulate the growth of new memory cells. The tragedy is that vitamin K2 has been almost entirely eradicated from the modern Western diet. It is primarily found in highly specific, fermented foods that our ancestors ate, but that we have completely abandoned. The absolute highest concentration of vitamin K2 on Earth is found in a traditional Japanese dish called natto, which is made from aggressively fermented soybeans. It is not a coincidence that populations consuming natto have historically possessed some of the highest bone densities, the lowest rates of cardiovascular calcification, and incredibly robust cognitive longevity well into their 90s. If you cannot tolerate the pungent taste of fermented soybeans, vitamin K2 is also found in the deep, yellow butterfat of cows that graze exclusively on rapidly growing green grass in the spring, or in certain aged, hard cheeses, like authentic Gouda. By demanding high-quality, full-fat K2-rich foods, or by seeking out a high-quality vitamin K2 supplement specifically in the MK7 form, you are providing the critical missing link. You are giving your skeleton the exact molecular tools it needs to finally utilize the calcium you have been consuming. You are rebuilding the massive endocrine factory inside your marrow, ensuring that every time you perform your isometric holds or your morning heel drops, a massive, unhindered wave of neuroprotective osteocalcin is released to wash over your shrinking hippocampus. You are reclaiming the ancient evolutionary mechanism that kept our ancestors sharp, independent, and fiercely capable until their final days. We have completely redefined the purpose of your skeleton. We now understand that your bones are a living, breathing hormonal factory, and that the secret to a youthful, vibrant memory is the production of osteocalcin. You possess the safe, low-impact mechanical protocols to wake up the bone cells, and you understand the absolute necessity of vitamin K2 to ensure the factory actually functions. You have the exact blueprint to turn your skeleton into a relentless engine of cognitive salvation, but there is a terrifying reality that we must face immediately. You could perfectly execute the isometric holds, and you could diligently consume your vitamin K2, sending massive waves of healing osteocalcin up toward your brain. But what happens if that vital hormone is physically assassinated in your bloodstream before it ever reaches your skull? It turns out, there is a highly toxic, synthetic chemical hiding in nearly every single sugar-free, diabetic-friendly, or diet product in your pantry. This artificial chemical forcefully binds to the osteocalcin in your blood, permanently deactivating it, and rendering all of your hard work entirely useless. If you want to identify the exact name of this invisible skeletal saboteur, and the 3-day dietary protocol to flush it out of your body permanently, you need to click the video on your screen right now, and I will show you exactly how to protect the memory fuel your bones work so hard to create.